She is the only princess of the royal family, yet she was tied to a couch like merchandise. Forced by her brother to marry a man she had only met once. The triumphant hero returning from war was granted a royal marriage by the king, awarding him his foolish and simple-minded sister, Misa, as a prize for victory. It seemed like a reward, but in truth it was humiliation. The girl was like a startled fawn. Eric looked astonished. If one looked a little closer, one would discover that deep within the hollow eyes of the princess lay a trace of scrutiny. The king's voice was cheerful, as if he were merely teasing a pet. "My sister is easily shy, Misa, come here." The girl cried out incoherently, unable to form a complete sentence. The next second, she fell heavily to the ground. The king sneered. "My sister is not in good health. I hope you will forgive her. Get up, Misa." The old count spoke of marrying the princess as an honor for the family, yet his heart was in turmoil. This foolish and frail girl was actually the princess. The man accepted the royal decree of marriage. "I will certainly not bring shame upon His Majesty the King and Her Highness the Princess." Eric's obedience greatly pleased the king. "She will soon be your wife. Come and greet her." His expression did not ripple in the slightest. He walked to Misa and knelt on one knee, gently taking the girl's hand with the courtesy reserved for royalty. "It is my honor to care for your highness in the days to come." Unexpectedly, the princess violently shook him off. Misa retreated again and again, her face filled with terror. The king crooked his finger. "He is your future husband. This won't do, come here." She ran toward the king, kneeling beside the throne as the man stroked her golden hair in satisfaction. "It was you who were rude, Misa. You must apologize to him." As soon as he finished speaking, the girl began barking like a dog. Eric calmly watched this farce, as if the one marrying the princess before him was not himself at all. The sun set in the west, and no one spoke inside the carriage. Their family had just gone through a long war. The king, who had hoped to let them and their enemies destroy each other, was extremely dissatisfied with their overwhelming victory. Thus he arranged this marriage. The father flew into a rage at the dinner table, but the son was much calmer. Though he resisted inwardly, he knew the king's command could not be defied. As the young heir of Cladnir, he had no choice but to obey. More ridiculous still, the king even sent maids under the pretext of caring for the princess, when in fact they were there to monitor them. Despite the heavy atmosphere in the manor, the people, learning of the marriage alliance with the royal family, were still overjoyed. They did not know that their lord was about to marry a fool. The wedding arrived as scheduled. The moment they saw the bride, whispers immediately filled the hall. "Is she unwell? She looks as if she's drunk." No matter the bride's condition, nothing could stop the completion of the wedding. Eric Cladnir and Misa Esquelier made their vows in the sacred church and completed the ceremonial kiss. Before entering the room, an elderly maid reminded him, "Please do not let Her Highness be hurt tonight. We will come tomorrow morning to collect the proof." Eric replied coldly, "Understood." He pushed open the bedroom door. The girl lay there half reclined like a shattered doll, her eyes lifeless. The room was dim. Eric approached slowly, yet she showed no reaction. He removed his robe and called softly, "Your Highness?" But he suddenly sensed something was wrong. Several empty medicine bottles were scattered by the bed. Did they drug her? No. How could they give sedatives to someone who was nearly starving? Who would dare commit such a shameless act in broad daylight? Obviously, without the king's consent, no one would dare do such a thing. "Don't be afraid. I'll untie you right away." Misa had no idea how long she had been bound there. Her whole body was icy cold. Eric lowered his voice and asked, "Are you all right?" The place where her ankles were tied was slightly swollen. No matter how one looked at it, she was clearly not fine. He untied the ropes around her wrists as well. The princess had been bound for too long. Her body temperature was dangerously low. In this situation, he could not call anyone else in. There was only one method left. "Your Highness, I am going to get under the blanket. Please don't be frightened." The man's slightly hoarse voice echoed in the room. "My name is Eric, son of Count Cladnir. I am 24 years old and have no brothers. I once had a younger sister, but she passed away when she was very young. Because of the war with the Duchy of Westeda, I had been stationed at the border." He did not know how much the princess could understand, but felt he had to explain the situation. Winters at the border are very cold. Frostbite first attacks the extremities, so it is vital to get the blood circulating. He suddenly froze. The princess had already fallen asleep. Seeing her complexion gradually recover, Eric straightened up. He still had to fabricate evidence that they had spent the night together. The next day, the man took out a white cloth stained with blood and handed it to the maid waiting outside the door. Just as the plump maid was about to enter the room, he stopped her. "The princess has not woken yet. Let her rest a while longer." After the maid left, he returned to the room. He had just sighed when a sound came from behind him. He turned around to see Misa clutching a coat, lowering her head to gnaw on it. Misa let out muffled whimpers. The man looked at the food basket behind him. "You're hungry, aren't you? How about eating this first?" The girl cried out and dropped the robe, reaching for the food. Eric simply watched her quietly as she bit into the bread like a small animal. The corners of his lips lifted unconsciously. It's good that you're willing to eat. Once the wedding night had passed, they returned to the Count's manor. Although the Count and Countess had been waiting in advance, they did not truly welcome this troublesome daughter-in-law. They merely offered polite words telling them to rest. But the next second the princess climbed onto a sculpture. Eric hurriedly lifted her down. The Count turned his head away in disgust and left. A maid reached out to take the girl, but Eric blocked her. You've traveled far and must be tired. Go rest early. I will take care of her. For them, that was naturally exactly what they wanted. After the two walked away, he instructed the butler. From today on, Her Highness is part of our family. She is not in good health. Take extra care when looking after her. Not far away, his mother watched his every move thoughtfully. During the meal, Eric took the initiative to speak. I will feed my wife. You may withdraw and rest. The tall maid, oblivious to propriety, complained with a smile about Misa. It's fine. Her Highness always makes a fuss during meals and constantly causes trouble. Eric's gaze darkened, but he did not flare up. Instead, he continued to ask, does she have any particular likes or dislikes in food? After confirming that Misa had almost no dietary restrictions, he forked a small piece of meat. My lady, try this. His eyes never left her, continuing to observe her reaction. Unexpectedly, after chewing a few times, the girl spat it straight onto his face. Immediately after, she overturned the bowl of soup in front of her. Eric held down her hands while patiently guiding her. It doesn't suit your taste? He then turned to the maids, ordering them to take Misa away to change into clean clothes. The dining room fell quiet again, finally giving them a chance to talk. The Count looked at his wife and gestured in a code only they understood, meaning they must prevent spies from overhearing. Is it necessary to keep her alive for so long? The Countess was amused by her husband's stupidity. If we kill this woman, we will die along with her. Eric understood his mother's meaning. The kingdom of Esquelier once had three great families known as the Three Pillars of the Realm. The Sarakidi family, which stabilized domestic politics, the Crispin family, which maintained public order, and the Cladnir family, which suppressed foreign enemies. The current king had taken a queen from each of the three families. The prince born of the daughter of Duke Sarakidi was the tyrant Belmarlik too. Not only did he lack the virtues of a king, but he was also arbitrary and despotic. Under the pretext of reclaiming royal authority, he personally exterminated the Sarakidi family, his maternal relatives. Still unsatisfied, he continued to suppress the remaining two families. Oppressed, the two families decided to join forces and secretly arranged a marriage between their heirs, planning to rebel once the war ended. But things did not go as hoped. The hearts of the people, tormented by tyranny, gradually shifted to the Cladnir family, which had achieved great military merit in the war. The king's arranged marriage completely disrupted their plan. The Count trembled with rage. What use is keeping a mentally unstable woman like a madwoman? The Countess waved for the servants to withdraw. I heard that child was once perfectly normal. She only became foolish after witnessing the slaughter in the palace. Don't you think she's pitiful? You still have the mind to pity her? The Count looked at his son again. Just this morning, a vassal suggested letting Iberic replace you as heir. He said since the Crispin family insists on a marriage alliance with the heir, we could simply change the heir. Your position could be lost because of that woman. You once had a marriage contract with the Crispin family, but now that you are married, why is Grand Duke Heikiai still hesitating? The Count snorted coldly. That man has always been weak. Heikiai is the king's cousin and the only surviving royal besides the princess. But after losing his ability to father children in an accident, he has lived almost in isolation. The more the Count thought about it, the angrier he became, cursing as he left the dining room. The Countess gave a cold smile. Look at him. He can't even control his emotions. Eric, what do you think? I think we should never have bound the two families through marriage in the first place. It would only attract the king's attention. Besides, the next heir to the throne has not yet been determined. It will take at least several years to persuade the nobles. You're right. It seems I've stayed on the battlefield too long. Whenever it comes to politics, my mind rusts over. In the current situation, even you, a young man, it can see it clearly, yet he is still talking about harming that child. Since we're on the subject, let me remind you of something. It's good that the maids can't find fault, but you should not develop feelings for that child. There is nothing more shallow than a man's affection. If you will sooner or later take back what you give her, it's better not to give it at all. Don't make that poor child suffer anymore. All the way, Eric pondered his relationship with the princess. Even his mother thought it best to distance himself from her, but whenever he thought of that girl being wantonly abused, he simply could not stand by completely. Suddenly, the maid's scolding voices came from ahead. Get on the bed. Stop dawdling. Why are you being so disobedient today? Have you eaten your fill and now have the strength to resist? Thank you for your hard work, you too. The man's gentle voice sounded, yet carried unquestionable authority. From here on, I will personally take care of my wife. You may withdraw. He merely wanted to carry the girl back to her room to rest, yet she struggled wildly in his arms as if mad. The moment he set her down, Misa immediately assumed a defensive posture. Over these past few days, Eric had almost concluded that the princess disliked him. Just a few days ago, he had intended to follow his mother's advice and reassess his relationship with the princess. But the moment he saw her being bullied by the maids, his heart softened again. After driving the maids away, Misa visibly relaxed. Though she gave little response, he still insisted on speaking to her. "You seem to be in a good mood today. This is our residence in the royal capital. From now on, we will travel between here and our territory, Cladis. During this time, is there anything you are dissatisfied with?" The princess remained absorbed in playing with her hair. Eric felt somewhat disappointed. She had looked at him when he first entered. Had she lost interest already? However, seeing the girl's bare calves exposed, he could not help but frown. Does the princess have no other clothes besides these? They look just like prison garments. Misa suddenly looked up at him because they were so close. Eric froze for a moment. The next second, he heard a puffing sound coming from the girl's mouth. She puckered her lips and spat a mouthful of saliva all over his face. The man stood there, stunned. "My lady, you mustn't spit in other people's faces." He gently patted Misa on the back. "You get some rest first. I'll finish the remaining work and then come back to sleep. If you need anything, call me anytime." A rumble of thunder rolled across the pitch-black night sky. Moonlight streamed through the window, spilling over the two of them. Eric slept deeply, completely unaware that the wife, lying beside him, was staring at him with a strange expression. The girl bore none of the foolishness and madness she showed during the day. The next day, the two of them went about their day as usual. He scooped up a spoonful of soup, preparing to feed it to the princess. Eric noticed that her complexion was even paler than usual. She had clearly been fine before going to bed last night. Patiently, he coaxed her, "Eat a little more." Before he could even finish speaking, Misa reached her hand into the bowl. She grabbed a handful at random and stuffed it straight into her mouth to lick. Eric was once again left at a loss by her behavior. After Eric married the princess, the atmosphere in the manor quietly began to change as well. As captain, he went to the training grounds on time every day, but whenever everyone faced him, their expressions looked as though they were holding something back. A heavy air lingered everywhere. "What are you all standing there for? Is today's training over already?" At some point, the count began refusing to dine at the same table with them. Seeing her husband like that, the countess felt he simply did not know how to control his emotions. And the retainers who followed Cladnir also grew increasingly unsettled. Even so, no one dared to express dissatisfaction to his face, because Eric always appeared calm, as if nothing had happened. After training ended, Eric learned that the princess had gone to the maid's workroom. The room was filled with the scent of sun-dried clothes. The girls sat in a circle, whispering softly, and Misa lay among them. Her hair shimmered in the sunlight. It's even more beautiful than silver thread. I once saw a kitten whose fur was pure white all over. It must have been very cute. When Eric entered the room, he happened to hear this conversation. After learning that the two maids who were supposed to look after Misa were nowhere to be seen again, he walked straight over and picked the girl up. "I'll take care of her." He crossed the corridor, stepped up the stairs, and returned to their bedroom. The moment he entered, the girl jolted awake. She began struggling desperately. "Wait until I put you down, or you'll get hurt if you fall." But the moment he let go, she immediately jumped to the other end of the bed, assuming a fully guarded stance. Over the past few days, Eric had discovered that the princess really did not seem to like him. How should he put it? She treated him only as a walking tool. Because the princess was too special, Eric always paid extra attention to her every move. He noticed something stuck in Misa's hair and reached out to help remove it. The girl suddenly shrank back. Was she frightened? "I didn't mean to scare you. I just wanted to help you remove what's stuck in your hair." Like an ostrich, Misa lowered her head and refused to look up. Eric began observing her again. When the girl lifted her head once more, there was not the slightest trace of panic on her face. He suddenly remembered what the maids had said. Her fur is entirely snow white. She really does look quite similar. He couldn't help letting out a soft laugh. In fact, Eric was not as composed as he appeared. The maids from the palace always left the princess with the manor servants and slipped away whenever they had the chance. There must be some hidden reason behind this. The food supply for the people in the territory was also a pressing problem, and there were too many matters to worry about. Recently, another issue had been added. The person he had sent to follow the head of the house had just sent back the latest information. The head of the house frequently met with a woman from a tavern. In fact, when his father suddenly proposed an alliance by marriage with Crispin, he had already grown suspicious. Though in others' eyes, it was a good bargain. For some reason, he always felt something was wrong. From that time on, he began secretly keeping an eye on everything around his father. As a result, he discovered that a bar hostess frequently entered and left his father's residence. When he first learned of this, he felt somewhat bitter. But on a battlefield balance between life and death, Such matters were not worth making a fuss over. So he began investigating the woman to see whether she had been instructed by someone and was approaching his father with ulterior motives. He had never told anyone about this. Unexpectedly, as soon as the war ended, his father insisted on bringing the hostess home and even had his right-hand man, Karnik, take her as a concubine. Left with no choice, he wrote to his mother, including the evidence. But his mother did not care. If someone wants that old man, let them have him. Not having to see him every night only makes my life quieter. His mother was utterly indifferent, and his investigation made no progress. The woman never made contact with any mastermind behind the scenes. He set the letter down and let out a soft sigh. It seems there are no new leads for now. In fact, his mother's reaction was normal. In her eyes, their relationship had been nothing more than a partnership to jointly manage the family from the very beginning. At that moment, a rustling sound came from the bedside. Misa had woken up. She rubbed her eyes, then got up and walked toward him. Why not sleep a little longer? Do you need something? The girl still said nothing, but this time something was different. She placed her hands on Eric's shoulders, then climbed fully into his lap. The girl took the initiative to climb into his arms and tore the stack of important letters in his hand into pieces, one by one. Yet not only did he not get angry, he felt happy because she had approached him on her own for the first time. All this time, Eric had been burdened by countless affairs, coupled with his deep resentment toward the king, leaving him with almost no room for emotional concerns. But now, just thinking that she would spend her life with him, a strange and fresh feeling rose from the depths of his heart. When he was young, the first time he heard the word chivalry, he was filled with a sense of responsibility and pride. But when faced with reality, he awoke from his dream. No matter how noble it sounded, in the end, he was merely a tool to continue the family bloodline and produce heirs. Therefore, he had almost no expectations for his future wife. Even someone like this, who took pleasure in tearing paper, did not matter. More precisely, ever since he understood his position and responsibilities as the heir, he had no longer held any expectations for marriage. The letters in his hand were torn to nothing, and the girl set her sights on the letter sealed with a crest. This time, Eric reached out to stop her. Misa, stop. He took the letter back into his hand. This one cannot be torn. The girl lunged forward to snatch it, and he leaned back to avoid her. Even if you cling to me, it won't work. I haven't finished reading this one yet. The room echoed with the girl's shouts and his half-indulgent protests. Not that one either. At least let me finish reading it first. The next day, in the Countess's office, Misa suddenly burst in. The girl paid no attention to the other's gazes and lay directly on the floor, making purring sounds like a cat. The Countess looked slightly surprised. How strange. I heard that Her Highness the Princess usually stays with the servants. Why would she come looking for me today? Oh my, madam. How can you call the young mistress Her Highness the Princess? She's not an outsider. You're right. I just haven't decided how to address her yet. Yahello, I've been at the border for so long and am unfamiliar with palace etiquette. In this situation, how should I address Her Highness the Princess? Yahello lowered her gaze. I'm not quite sure either. As expected, not only are they not helping, they don't even intend to get along properly with her. Madam, I inquired about it. It said there was a similar situation before. At that time, the Edbarl couple addressed Her Highness directly by her given name. Then we'll do the same. I heard that Her Highness the Princess's given name is Misa. She looked at the girl and called softly in a tone she rarely used, Misa. The girl's sapphire blue eyes turned toward her. Then she suddenly sat up, and a thoroughly unladylike yet breathtaking smile bloomed on her face. Oh my. It seems Her Highness has agreed to let me call her by her name. Misa, what a lovely name. Yahello suddenly spoke. Her Highness seems to quite like you, madam. May she stay here until dinner? All right, you may go down and rest. After she left, the maid beside the Countess finally let out a quiet sigh of relief. In a situation like that, a mistaken form of address could easily be used as leverage. I've heard Lady Yahello idles around all day. The only thing she insists on is personally bathing Her Highness the Princess every day. But Lady Marika is almost never seen, and no one knows what she's busy with. A faint smile curled at the Countess's lips. If they dare to slack off so openly, they must have other plans. For now, we'll just play along. After all, we don't know what accusations they intend to pin on us. Their conversation did not deliberately avoid Misa. The Countess suddenly pressed a hand to her temple. Adel, bring me some headache medicine. When Adel returned with the medicine, the scene before her made her freeze. The princess was leaning against the Countess. Upon closer look, she had fallen asleep with her head resting directly on the Countess's lap. And the Countess was actually allowing her to rest there like that. Are you alright? If your headache is severe, perhaps you should call a doctor. But the Countess changed the subject. This child is 20, right? That's what the palace says. I remember it being about that. I heard that when she was very young, she witnessed more than half of the royal family being brutally slaughtered. Anyone would go mad from that kind of pain. Not to mention that now she's being used by various parties. This child is too pitiful. She's so beautiful, yet her fate is so bitter. Her features and even her eye color are stunning beyond measure. She's just too thin. We must make her more delicious food. Adel had originally thought her mistress did not care about this daughter-in-law, but she had observed her so carefully. A familiar feeling welled up in her heart. Oh dear, Misa. You should trim your nails, and your hair needs to be properly brushed. Could it be that on Her Highness the Princess, the Countess, sees the shadow of that child? When Eric returned from training, he heard that the princess was with his mother. Before he even approached, he heard his mother and the maid's voices. Madam, let me trim her toenails. It's fine, I'll do it myself. And if we suddenly switch people, it might frighten her. What are you doing? Eric stared at the scene in disbelief. From the moment he entered, he felt a strange sense of discord. Given his mother's personality, at most she would feel sympathy for others, but she would never personally trim someone else's toenails. She was so rational she could even remain distant from her own son. Yet the expression on her face now made it clear to anyone that she truly liked the princess. That was the expression she only wore when his sister Rogel was still alive. If his mother had already seen the shadow of her daughter in the princess, was it really good for this to continue? He quickly stepped forward. Give me the scissors. I'll trim them. The reason he thought this way was because he still clearly remembered how his mother looked on the day his sister died. He was not sure whether he should stop this. Eric's expression was grave, but his movements were swift and neat as he trimmed the girl's nails. Misa slightly lifted her head, her gaze curiously fixed on him. It tickles. Adel suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. The princess had changed her expression at some point. Oh no. She's unhappy. She glanced at the pastries nearby, grabbed one, and quickly stuffed it into the girl's mouth. In an instant, everyone froze. The sound of chewing was unusually clear in the air. Eric asked with interest, "How did you think to do that?" I noticed Her Highness seemed a little uncomfortable. Previously, when I gave her something sweet, she would immediately calm down. It seems she quite likes sweets. His mother let out a light laugh. The way Misa eats is simply too adorable. Watching her eat so happily has even lifted my mood. Just the day before, he had cared for Misa, as usual, but he still could not understand. What about the princess would remind his mother of his sister? Aside from the color of their eyes, they were almost nothing alike. If it was just eye color, wasn't Iberic even more similar? Yet his mother had never looked at him differently because of that. At this moment, a servant brought up a plate of roasted quail. The plate had just been set down. When the girl suddenly clutched her head, squeezed her eyes shut, her face filled with pain, and waved her hands wildly, as if trying to drive away something terrifying. Could it be because of this? He hurriedly had the plate of quail removed, and the princess quickly calmed down. Eric could not help but wonder whether she had once suffered because of this. And precisely because of this small incident, he was unable to concentrate during training the next day, his mind preoccupied with whether she had eaten properly. When he left home in the morning, she still looked somewhat listless. Seeing that it was close to noon, "Thank you for your hard work, Commander." He announced the end of training early and hurried back to the residence. As soon as he entered, he heard that she had fallen into the stream. After bathing and having dinner, Madam took a short nap and is now in the maid's workroom. Eric was startled. She fell into the stream? Yes. On the way to church with the first madam, she probably accidentally fell into the ornamental fish pond. Upon hearing that she had gone out with his mother, Eric felt slightly relieved. Since she was with mother, nothing serious should have happened. Still, she has really been busy today. The young madam doesn't seem to like the chapel very much. She started making a fuss as soon as she arrived, so she stayed outside with the maids until the service ended. Thinking that Misa was probably in a bad mood today, if he gave her something tasty like yesterday, would she feel a little better? He immediately instructed the steward to prepare some sweets on the table every day from now on. Soon night fell. The girl obediently opened her mouth, waiting for him to feed her. Why is she being so compliant while eating today? Seeing how lively she looked, she should be fine now. Hey, you can't just eat meat, you need to eat some vegetables too. He used a fork to stack the onions together with the beef. Here, open your mouth. But just as he brought it to her lips, the slice of onion plopped down. Ah, it's okay, I'll get you another piece. Eric's hand, halfway extended, suddenly froze. The onion had fallen right onto the girl's chest, which made him tense up for a moment. Pardon me. He carefully tried not to touch her, watching the food pass before her eyes. Misa actually chased after it to bite it. Eric raised his hand to dodge, but unexpectedly, the girl grabbed his arm. I'll cut you a new piece. This one can't be eaten anymore. Misa refused. She exerted so much force that her little face scrunched up. Eric did not dare use too much strength for fear of hurting her, and as a result, she succeeded. She bit down on his finger at once. The hard teeth and the soft, enclosing lips made him jerk his hand back sensitively in an instant. Misa looked stunned. She stared blankly at the man. Then, the kitten whose food had been taken away grew angry. She grabbed the tablecloth and flipped all the food over in one motion. As soon as Dial opened the door, She saw the two of them covered in spilled soup. With undisguised disgust on her face, she said, "Is it not tiring to have this happen every meal?" Eric, however, remained sitting there for a long time without moving. The sensation left by the girl still lingered on his hand. Damn it, his thoughts began to grow chaotic. The image of Misa biting him kept flashing through his mind. It was as if he could still feel the dampness at his fingertips. Although she was his wife, in her current state she was no different from a child. So she probably didn't even understand that I am her husband. He must not regard the princess as a woman. Eric kept brainwashing himself, absolutely not allowing himself to have any improper thoughts about her. Yet his reddened ears and profile betrayed everything. Not long after, his mother informed him that a poetry recital would be held on Wednesday, and she hoped her son would take good care of the princess. A poetry recital, though it sounded like an ordinary event, was actually a gathering of like-minded noble ladies to discuss the corrupt royal family and aristocratic houses. Thus, it was a place where various kinds of intelligence could easily be obtained. This event would be hosted by their family. Most importantly, the Marchioness of Crispin and her only daughter would also attend. Although the broken engagement was not their responsibility, the other party would likely still bear a grudge. After saying this, Madame intended to take the princess to the greenhouse. Eric awkwardly turned his head away from the girl, yet he could not help but ask with concern, "Did Misa have fun today?" His mother burst into laughter. "You sound just like a father who has handed his child to a nanny. Why don't you come along as well? I still have things to attend to. I just came to see her in passing." Eric originally intended to refuse, but after glancing at the girl once more, he changed his mind. "I'd better go take a look." The greenhouse was very spacious. Misa was like a curious little animal, running here and there looking around. Seeing her like this, the heart Eric had kept tightly wound finally relaxed a little. Just then, two maids who often played with Misa arrived. "Young madam, have you come to stroll in the greenhouse as well? Why didn't you come play with us just now? We've been waiting for you all along." The moment she saw the bird in the cage, Misa froze as if rooted to the spot. Lightning flashed and thunder roared in the pitch-black night sky. In the hall, several crows flapped their wings, letting out piercing cries. And on the ground lay the nightmare she did not wish to recall. The parrot began to speak eerily. "Misa, it seems Mother did something wrong. But even if Mother did something wrong, she must be punished, right? So now Mother." The rest of the words were drowned out by a shrill scream. It was Misa clutching her head and collapsing in breakdown. She fell to the ground, gasping in extreme agony. Worried and frightened gazes, curious and astonished looks, and undisguised disgust. All directions of eyes converged upon the girl. Only Eric was the first to rush toward her. "Are you alright? Lean against me first." No one around understood why the princess was like this. Misa suddenly threw herself at him, as if grasping her only lifeline. Her whole body was trembling violently. "What on earth is going on?" Marika said calmly. "The young madam reacted this way because she saw that bird. Because Her Highness the Princess is afraid of birds. But this seems to be more than just a simple fear of birds." The Countess rebuked sharply. "Shouldn't such a matter have been informed in advance? If you can't even manage that, why did you follow to the border residence?" The maid remained arrogant in attitude. "Don't we bathe and change Her Highness every day? We merely forgot a small detail. Why be so aggressive? What nonsense are you talking about?" Though Madame did not speak again, anger was already hidden in her eyes. Eric sensed his mother's displeasure, but the girl's condition no longer allowed him to stay there. He took Misa away from the greenhouse. So that day it was also because of birds? There will be no such food on the dining table in the future. All the birds in the greenhouse will be removed as well. At this moment, the girl waved her hand. "Do you want to go to the courtyard? There might be birds there." Misa nodded, indicating that she wanted to go. Eric agreed. Thinking about it now, aside from when his mother took her to church, she had always stayed inside the residence. Perhaps going out for some fresh air would make her feel better. He wiped the remaining tears from the corner of her eyes. "Rest assured and sleep. If any birds fly over, I will drive them away. Once you fall asleep, I'll carry you back to your room." After saying that, he began to observe the surroundings. Perhaps it was the sudden relaxation after the fright that gradually made Misa close her eyes. After a long while, someone approached from a distance, speaking in a familiar tone. "Taking Madam out for some air? You two seem quite affectionate. So she's asleep." Eric's expression darkened. "Get lost." But the man stepped closer instead. "That temper of yours is really explosive." "What? Afraid I'll wake your wife. Rumors about you two are spreading everywhere now. They've even reached my household." Only then did Eric look at him directly. And who is it this time? His uncle had been trying to win over collateral branches in order to make his own son, Iberic, the head of the family. At such a time, having the head's affairs spread outside was not a good thing. There should be a red-haired maid named Fina in your residence. This time it was she and a brown-haired attendant spreading the news everywhere. So this person was Iberic. Yet by nature he was free-spirited and indifferent, uninterested in power. They had even fought side by side on the battlefield, forging a bond of life and death. Moreover, he had been supporting Eric for a long time. Thank you. I owe you another favor. Why be so polite? Thanks to you, I've actually found things rather interesting lately. But what exactly is going on with you? Have you completely fallen for your wife? I heard you even trimmed her toenails yourself? I couldn't very well stand by and watch mother trim them for her. That's true enough. But seeing you today, it still feels a bit over the top. What exactly are you trying to say? I heard from the maids that your wife doesn't even get the chance to walk by herself. Wherever she goes, you carry her the whole time. Didn't you see it today as well? My wife's legs aren't convenient. And besides, she's already someone who's hard to control. Did you want me to drag her along like at the wedding? If it were you, could you do such a thing to your own family? Iberic wore an unconvinced expression. There you go again, with your unique sense of responsibility and sympathy. Although there are unavoidable reasons, I still completely can't understand it. When I first heard the rumors, I thought it was your tactic to deceive the king, and even praised your acting in my heart. But now there's clearly no one watching. Why are you still going this far? Don't tell me you truly intend to let this woman remain your wife? If at first, he merely told Iberic to get lost out of fear of waking Misa, now the other man was close to provoking him. Shut up. No, I just don't understand what you're thinking. Logically speaking, wouldn't it be better for you to get rid of her immediately? Weren't you originally preparing to marry Recap? Stop talking. In any case, no matter whom I marry, as long as it benefits the family, that's enough. Since I married her, the king will relax his vigilance toward us for this period of time. Besides, she knows nothing. She doesn't know whose lap she is lying on, nor does she know what kind of treatment she is enduring. She is already pitiful enough. So, is it necessary to make her even more unfortunate? Iberic sighed. Indeed, everyone treats the princess like a plague. It was the first time Eric had heard someone describe his wife so bluntly. His tone grew desolate. Treat her like a plague? A few days later, the poetry recital was held as scheduled. Families who had connections with Cladnir arrived one after another, and the mother and daughter of the Crispin family also attended as promised. But Eric only brought the princess to briefly greet them. They were met with dozens of curious gazes. Of course, none of these people's blessings were sincere. During the greetings, everyone pretended not to notice the awkward atmosphere between the two families who had once been engaged by marriage, secretly observing instead. Afterward, Eric used his wife's poor health as an excuse, picked up Misa, and left without looking back. Recap stared at them thoughtfully. Wait, she actually chased after them. Is something the matter? I'd like to talk to you. Eric's tone was extremely cold. It's rather presumptuous of you to follow me out like this. Recap ignored him and continued speaking on her own. Since there isn't much time, I'll keep it brief. Don't stay with her. From the moment the king arranged his marriage, both families, whose engagement had been made for profit in the first place, tacitly regarded the agreement as null and void. So Eric did not understand what she was trying to do. The woman released the handkerchief she had been holding behind her back and spoke in farewell. Then we shall meet again, next time. Inside the Crispin family's carriage. Did you drop the handkerchief there just now? And did you make things clear to him? Seeing her daughter nod, the mother continued. You saw it too just now, didn't you? Those two were holding each other the whole time. How disgusting. But that girl is exactly the type all men like. Not only is she pretty, she's always smiling. The one who should have married into their family ought to have been you. Recap had spent her entire life learning the virtues expected of a noble family's mistress. It would not be an exaggeration to say she had been raised solely to bear an heir. But perhaps the girl's heart did not think the same. Her hands were covered with calluses and scars that a noble young lady should never have. Recently, Eric had been working until late at night. His mind was constantly running at overload. His father was obsessed with keeping women company and paid no attention to family affairs. So, he alone had to shoulder most of the responsibilities of the territory. What troubled him most recently was that, due to the long war and the resulting loss of lives and property among the people, there was a shortage of food this summer. If they could find a way to hold out until autumn, the situation would gradually stabilize, because the soldiers who had returned from the battlefield to farm would then have their harvest. Originally, having won the war, they should have received ample compensation from the royal family. But the compensation the king gave Cladnir was merely unimpressive spoils of war, as well as the Harlake iron mine granted reluctantly out of concern for public opinion. Eric looked toward the other side of the bedroom. Because developing the iron mine would take a long time, it could not solve their urgent needs. Right now, the most critical issue for the territory was how to exchange what they currently had for food. Since the king turned a blind eye, they could only solve it themselves. Of course, this was not merely a matter of the family's finances. With his father absent, all the vassals were watching him, and those gazes, filled with expectation, were far more painful than he had imagined. It was like a coffin pressing heavily down on him. The man suddenly came back to his senses. It was Misa tugging at his clothes. "Sorry, I was thinking about something else just now. Would you like to sit up here?" The girl suddenly hugged him. Misa only needed to glance at him, and Eric knew what she wanted. He fed the candy to the girl. "Are you going back? Don't go. Stay a little longer." Just looking at the woman nestled in his arms, not running away, made his gloomy mood seem comforted. The next day, a maid from the Crispin family suddenly came to the door, claiming that her young lady's handkerchief had been left here. In high society, a handkerchief is a token of affection between men and women. For an unmarried lady to leave her handkerchief at her former fiancé's house is a very serious matter. So the Marchioness immediately ordered people to search for it. To avoid suspicion, she ordered it to be announced that the handkerchief belonged to the Marchioness. And the leading maid happened to know Marika. She proposed that the princess be eliminated within 2 years at the latest. "As long as you want it, tomorrow would be fine." No, this matter cannot be handled so rashly. If it's too soon, they will become the prime suspects. As for Misa, the Marchioness was personally combing her hair. Today was the day the whole family dined together. She had intended to tell the girl to behave, but the words changed at her lips. "Forget it, Misa. What matters most is that you eat well." Not far away, the Count looked at the girl with undisguised hostility. The meal did not go smoothly. Misa scraped her plate, producing a sharp sound, so piercing it was unbearable. The Count scolded. "What is wrong with her? She's learning to use a fork. Don't scold her. Give me your hand." Eric picked up a roasted lamb shank. "Just hold this and eat with your hands." You two are truly speechless. How old is she already? Does she still need to be taught hand in hand just to eat? Husband, you should stop paying attention to Misa. Anyway, Misa probably doesn't want your concern either. The Count, having lost face, was about to retort when the Marchioness shifted her gaze. "Eric, give Misa some vegetables." This only made the Count more displeased. He slammed his palm on the table. "You two will soon be going to see His Majesty the King. During this time, make sure she doesn't get so much as a bump or a bruise." With that, he rose and left. But clearly, neither his son nor his wife cared about him at all. Speaking of going to the palace, the Marchioness asked her son whether he had prepared a gift. Eric replied that it had long been ready. In the kingdom of a squirrel, there is a custom that 50 days after marriage, the newlyweds must visit the bride's family. And for him and Misa, that meant going to the royal palace. On the morning they were to depart for the palace, the maid suddenly acted unusually diligent, which made him feel uncomfortable. He looked at the girl dressed in splendid attire. The princess had been the wife he married under the sympathetic gazes of others, when he had already given up all expectations of marriage. And that wife seemed better than he had imagined. Eric bent down close to her. "Do you know my name?" Misa only glanced at him and then turned her back. The man who received no response instead smiled. "It's all right. I was only asking casually." In Eric's view, Misa perhaps did not even know who he was. But to him, having someone he needed to protect made such a life not so bad. Soon they arrived at the palace, the blinding strong light streaming in through the windows, and the gray-white marble covering the palace made him understand that everything was intended to intimidate. But thinking of the king's various actions made him feel displeased about it all. The young king who had just ascended the throne 20 years ago had stabilized royal power with ease, because his maternal grandfather, the Sarakiti family, was extremely powerful. But 12 years ago, when many people died due to war, no one knew what had happened in the capital, and the king's behavior changed drastically. The palace was drenched in blood every day. Before the blood could be wiped clean, more heads would come rolling across the floor. On the floor he was about to step on next, whose corpse had once lain there. The two soon entered the Great Hall. Eric greeted together with the princess. "We pay our respects to your Majesty the King." The man on the throne wore a mocking expression. The girl suddenly bent down, and after taking a few steps forward, she lay directly on the ground. The king kept staring at his sister. "It's been a long time. Misa's complexion has improved so much. It seems you will soon have a child." From the very first night of their marriage, he had made efforts to avoid arousing the king's suspicion, because he did not want someone who knew nothing to inexplicably suffer the pain of childbirth. Though that was what he thought in his heart, what he said was something else. "I also hope we can have a child soon. It's just that my wife's health has not fully recovered. There's no need to say that. I have no interest in discussing a monkey's health. More importantly, I heard something quite interesting from the maids. The proof of your first night together was covered in blood. Yet when the princess was bathed, her body was found spotless. From the first night until now, whether on the bed or on the princess's body, everything has been impeccably clean. What? Do you not wish to have an heir bearing royal blood?" Only then did Eric realize his mistake. "Aren't you usually eloquent? Go on. Tell me what you're really thinking. I hear you haven't even touched the princess. Are you planning to go to the temple to annul the marriage?" "No. How would I dare to think such a thing? He had not expected the maids to report even such private matters to the king. The king's smile grew more sinister. Is that so? The Cladner family has deceived the royal house. My Misa is so adorable, yet you won't even touch her. Then may I interpret your behavior as treason against the crown? Eric's heart sank. Was he truly going to let things reach this point? Once the king uttered the word treason, there was no retreat. Even if he did not care about his own life, what about his parents and the vassals who followed Cladner? What fate would await them? He had brought only a little over 70 knights to the capital, nowhere near enough to resist the royal guards. The king waved his hand. Misa, come here. The girl obediently crawled toward him. My poor sister, answer me. Has your husband touched your clothes at night? But the princess merely focused on playing with his shoe. Suddenly, the king grabbed her hair forcefully. The girl let out a scream. Eric shouted, Your Majesty, please release her first. Wasn't I asking you a question? Has he ever touched you or not? He had never touched his wife after the marriage. But at this moment, the princess, before everyone, pointed to herself and said, It hurts here. All because the king wanted to bring down the Cladner family, who controlled the border troops. If his sister were still untouched, then the young count could be charged with treason for deceiving the royal family. Yet now the foolish princess was stumbling through a description of how her husband had treated her on their wedding night. Eric stood frozen, listening to her recount things that had never happened. What was going on? The king abruptly stood up. Enough. I have no desire to hear details of my sister with her husband. It is most unpleasant. He kicked Misa aside. Take her out at once. Eric stepped forward and picked up the girl. His expression had completely changed. No words could describe his feelings at this moment. Was it the humiliation and anger of being framed by the king in such a brutal manner? Or the sense of betrayal from the princess he had always cared for his family? In the carriage, Eric remained silent the entire time. The princess slept quietly in his arms. The tight line of the man's lips seemed to herald an approaching storm. After returning to the residence, he gave the order, Today I will personally look after my wife. Do not let anyone go up to the second floor. Go to the knight's order and bring Carlin here. Even from the first floor hall, the princess's cries could be heard as she struggled desperately in Eric's arms. But how could a frail girl resist a man hardened by years on the battlefield? Carlin arrived quickly. Do not let anyone approach the study today. If anything happens, report to me immediately. After entering the room, he threw the girl into the inner chamber. Now no one can hear our conversation. Even if you scream yourself hoarse, no one will come. He grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward him. Do you understand? What I mean is, no matter what you say, no one will hear it. I already know you can communicate with others, so go ahead and speak. Misa was completely unable to move. The sense of oppression this man gave her was far too strong. She forced the corners of her mouth upward, revealing a foolish, silly smile. But clearly that trick no longer worked. I am very patient. How long are you planning to keep pretending to be stupid? If I hadn't discovered it today, were you planning to keep hiding it forever? What exactly do you take me for? The familiar tone interrupted everything he was about to say next. Eric's eyes widened. You should stop paying attention to Misa. At that moment, he even wondered if he had misheard. What did you mean by doing that in front of the king just now? The girl tilted her head slightly. Everyone will scavenge around like dogs, so we have to prove that we are doing well. Misa's tone was fluent and resolute. He seemed to have heard those words somewhere before. Unlike her gentle face and calm voice, her hands trembled slightly from nervousness. Eric suppressed the urge to continue probing her. He released Misa. I'm not trying to rush you. Up until now, what exactly has she been thinking with that little head of hers? Eric had once heard that when she was young, she witnessed her mother's death with her own eyes, and likely saw many of her siblings executed by the king as well. And the choice she made in order to survive was probably to accept treatment even worse than that given to beasts, contempt and ridicule. The moment he thought about what her life had been like up until now, he found himself unable to say a single word. They had known each other for only a short time, so he had no right to comfort her after all the hardships she had endured. Moreover, it was not something that could be soothed with a simple "you've worked hard." He wanted to say something to Misa, but in the end, he realized he could say nothing at all. That night, the princess slept in the study, while Eric kept watch over her the entire night. It wasn't until the butler came to deliver breakfast that Marika arrived with him. Eric had originally thought she would be executed for reporting false information, but unexpectedly, she had gotten away with it. He stopped Marika from waking the princess. Let her sleep a little longer. He could roughly guess that Marika thought they had done on their wedding night what they had not done before, which was why she came to confirm it. But perhaps it was better to let her misunderstand like that. Eric ate breakfast alone. Only then did he realize that it had been a long time since he had dined by himself. Every bite felt like chewing sand. The princess quickly regained her spirits. As usual, she began her daily routine, messing up the table, biting the clothes the black-haired man had taken off, and pulling out the maid's white hair. Just like that, she had completed half of the tasks she needed to finish each day. Misa pretended not to understand the maid's scolding while thinking about the black-haired man, though she wasn't quite sure why. He had seemed very angry yesterday. What if he told others about my secret and drove me away from here? No. Although that man seemed very angry so far, he didn't look like a bad person. But if he told others about me? The girl hurried toward the other side of the estate. You're here. Misa, did you sleep well last night? Didn't I tell you not to run around when there's no one by your side? She threw herself onto the lady's lap. Sure enough, that person began to gently stroke her. This child still seems half asleep. Fortunately, the lady was the same as usual. Eric's mother was discussing the renovation of the courtyard. They were planning to use mazu wood for the fence. Misa knew this material. The rosewood used in the royal palace cost 5 times as much as mazu wood. Could it be that they couldn't afford expensive materials here? But aside from the royal palace and Celia Palace, she had never been anywhere else. Oh right, the Reichen family's dairy farm has started producing butter and cheese. Although the price is a bit high, 20 pars, it's said to be good quality. So, I brought some over. Misa was shocked. That little bit costs 20? The lady picked up a piece and fed it to her. She remembered a maid once saying that a large sack of flour cost 20 pars. So this palm-sized piece of butter cost the same as a sack of flour? The black-haired man had always been worrying about the food supply for the people of the territory. If the household didn't have money, it would be better to buy flour instead. Misa, is it tasty? You're eating so happily. The lady's gaze overflowed with affection. Then let's buy 5D's worth and keep it for Misa to eat. The butter they usually bought only cost 4 pars, while 5 day equaled over 100 pars. Why do the black-haired man and the lady look so happy just watching me eat? Whatever the reason, their considerate attitude was definitely not just for my sake alone, because the princess had always been like a plague, so no one had ever treated her like that. Soon, evening arrived. When Eric came to pick up Misa, the girl who always threw herself at him actually refused. She didn't want to be alone with this man, but Eric gave her no chance to escape. She was easily lifted into the man's arms. Eric whispered in her ear, in a voice only she could hear, "You'd better come with me obediently, because of what happened yesterday. I haven't told anyone yet." After learning that the princess had been pretending to be insane, Eric began making her eat by herself. Misa hated this man. Eric was like someone standing on the opposite side of her. This man was decent, meticulous, emotionally stable, and she hadn't used a knife and fork in over 10 years. Even something as simple as cutting a steak was difficult for her. Yet the man solemnly praised her for doing well. Her hands were shaking like that, and he still had the nerve to praise her. She threw down the table knife, grabbed the food, and stuffed it into her mouth in large bites. Eric froze at her behavior. What is it this time? The girl frowned her pretty brows and looked at him with disdain at his question. If the maid sees the table spotless later, she'll suspect me again. Unexpectedly, the man suddenly lowered his head, covered his flushed face, and said, "Don't do that." Oh, I see what you mean. Misa was puzzled. Was he angry? But this wasn't the first time she had eaten in an unsightly way. It seemed she should restrain herself in the future. The girl's chin was suddenly gripped. "Lift your face." The man carefully wiped the dirt from her face. "What should I do? Should I wipe you like before and then feed you?" Misa nodded. She hadn't expected him to be so perceptive. "Give me your hand." He pulled her hand over and carefully wiped it clean. As she watched, the girl, still unaccustomed to being treated gently, averted her gaze. After the meal, the routine task was helping her bathe. This time, Eric did not leave. A basin of cold water was poured over the girl's head. Marika, who treated the princess as a fool, complained without restraint. Why does this girl never catch a cold? I really want a few days off. She also found it strange that she never caught a cold. But come to think of it, it was usually the plump maid who bathed her. Why was it her today? Misa's lips curved upward, and she turned around and grabbed Marika's hair. Marika hadn't expected her to fight back, and angrily pushed her down again. But this time she had miscalculated. "What are you doing?" The man's voice sounded from behind. Marika feigned surprise. "Why are you here?" As you can see, Her Highness suddenly started struggling. Sometimes she gets hurt because of it, so I had no choice. How ridiculous. Taking advantage of her inability to speak to spout nonsense. Just as Marika was about to persuade Eric to leave, the man walked in instead. "I'll wash her." My goodness, how can you personally bathe Her Highness? She might slip into the water or suddenly jump out. There's no need for you to trouble yourself. Eric cast her a cold glance. Then it should be even more my responsibility as her husband, shouldn't it? Marika tried to discourage Eric with the complicated bathing process. Bathing the princess isn't that simple. You have to wash her hair with this first, then apply essential oil to the ends, and only after carefully drying the water droplets can you use body lotion. Lies. Before, they clearly only used a single bar of soap to wash her clean. But even so, it was still better than in the palace. In the palace, they would treat her like laundry, throwing her into lye water and scrubbing her harshly. Under Eric's insistence, Marika finally left resentfully. Although he had driven the maid away, Eric found himself at a loss instead. He turned his head aside and stammered, can you wash yourself? How could a lunatic possibly wash herself? Eric gritted his teeth and, blushing, forced out, I understand. Wait a moment. Misa was a little confused. Why did he seem angry again? But continuing to anger him would bring her no benefit, so she decided to cooperate a little. When he noticed the princess approaching, Eric immediately raised his hand to cover his face. What are you doing? But in the next instant, all his awkwardness and shyness vanished. After the girl dropped the towel, all he saw were the whip marks and scars covering her body. Each scar was like a sharp thorn, constantly reminding him of the torment this girl had endured. Yet the girl's gaze was so indifferent, as if everything were perfectly ordinary. But when she saw the man's expression clearly, memory and reality overlapped, and fear instantly seized her mind. She began to retreat. I think I made a mistake. Although this man looked frightening, most of the time his attitude toward her had been gentle. But now his expression, am I going to be beaten again? Although she didn't know why he was angry. Even if she did, what would it matter? When had she ever been beaten for a reason? The anticipated pain did not come. Startled, Misa snapped back to her senses. Even the scars are this deep. How hard must they have struck? Who on earth did this to you? From the man's tone, she heard genuine worry. So he was sympathizing with her? Perhaps it was the first time she had heard such a sorrowful voice. Misa finally spoke again. The king. She felt she should respond to him. Even though her speech was clumsy and slow, it was an unexpected answer, yet also the expected one. Eric's eyes grew even more sorrowful, and just because she had responded, he became so flustered that for a moment, he didn't know how to react. After steadying his emotions, he grasped Misa's wrist. Hurry and finish washing and come out. Otherwise, you'll catch a cold. Eric rolled up his sleeves. If anything feels uncomfortable, tell me. After all, it's my first time bathing someone. Only then did the girl realize that perhaps he wasn't angry because his eyes were now full of sympathy. She had wanted to say that he could just wash her like a dog, but he remained careful and gentle. Soaking in the hot water, Misa discovered for the first time that bathing could be such a pleasant experience. She gradually began to feel drowsy. This feels so nice. The girl closed her eyes comfortably, so she completely failed to notice that the man who was carefully washing her was now blushing deeply. As a madwoman, she shouldn't have feelings like shyness or ticklishness. But when her back was scrubbed, the girl couldn't help letting out a laugh. She dodged Eric's hand. The man froze when she stared at him directly, his face instantly turning bright red as he quickly averted his gaze. The usually calm and steady man stammered an apology. Sorry. This shy feeling spread like an infectious disease and quietly infected Misa as well. Even she began to feel strange. Eric had already been busy during the day. After the bath, he collapsed onto the bed in exhaustion. Misa thought he must be completely worn out. The man raised his hand, reaching toward her. Lie down and rest now. You must be tired too. Misa obediently lay down beside him, but thought to herself, the one who should rest properly is obviously you. Eric's breathing gradually became steady. The girl quietly stared at his sleeping face. She truly couldn't understand this man. Yesterday, she had clearly saved his life, yet he still threatened her. Today, when he saw the scars on her body, he looked as if he was about to cry from sorrow. Sometimes, when he saw her eating too messily, he would reveal a look of disgust. Did he faint? But a man like this should already be considered a rare good person in this world. The girl pushed the door open and walked into the next room. At the moment she closed the door, Eric suddenly opened his eyes. He sat up from the bed, staring at the sliver of light seeping through the crack of the door. Soon after, he heard the girl's faint voice. Unable to suppress his curiosity, he stepped forward. The voice gradually became clearer. Go get me some headache medicine. It should be in my room. There is a food poisoning outbreak in the northern part of the capital. Wude's medicine has already been delivered to Kaijiri. Misa is practicing using a fork. The girl's tone was fluent and firm, but if one listened carefully, it would become clear that all of these were lines spoken by others before. The next day, as usual, the maid came to check on the princess's body. His lordship hasn't touched her again, so why dismiss everyone? Look, her body is so clean without a single mark. This kind of thing had been repeated countless times for Misa, but today her mood was especially bad. Perhaps it was that black-haired man from yesterday who had awakened the remnants of her sense of shame. Another strange behavior of hers had been discovered by him. In the past, when she pretended to be a madwoman, she never cared about others' gossip. But after he saw her true self, she actually began to care whether he would laugh at her. Marika looked puzzled. Could it be that even after seeing your naked body, he still didn't? Right. Who would ever let someone like you carry his child? Misa turned around. Recently, her body was indeed too clean. Not even a single bruise. I should find a chance to fall hard. That would reduce others' suspicion of her. How should she do it? She didn't want to get too seriously hurt, or maybe just destroy something valuable. No. The courtyards here were all built with ordinary wood. She couldn't make things worse for them. Misa looked at the staircase nearby. There was still some distance between her and the plump maid. As long as she controlled the force well, she probably wouldn't fall too badly. Although it would hurt, there was no better option. I'll pretend my legs gave out on the next step and fall down. A pair of large hands suddenly reached out. You really are too unsettling. The girl was pulled back in one swift motion. Wait, when did he get here? Misa did not want to see him at all, especially after what had happened last night. Eric brought her to the greenhouse. The birds here have all been moved away. But do you really dislike birds that much? The girl gave a soft response. He continued to press. Why? Is there some special reason? Because birds ate. Ate what? She did not want to answer, glared at Eric, and turned her head away. The man continued. When you speak, does it feel uncomfortable somewhere? No one else will come here. You can relax. In fact, she was not worried about someone coming. The way the girl hesitated to speak made the man realize something. Is it difficult for you to speak? She could speak well in her head, but when she tried to say it aloud, she found it especially difficult. Have you gone too long without speaking normally to others? So you're not used to organizing the language in your mind into words? She truly did not know how to explain it. And this person had actually guessed the reason she could not speak normally so accurately. The man continued analyzing. So that's why you imitate other people's speech? Stop just nodding all the time. Try speaking. I've seen you give some short answers. Misa realized that she seemed unable to refuse Eric. Every time she saw his extremely serious face, no matter how unwilling she was, she always felt she ought to answer him a little. Got it. The moment the words left her mouth, she was startled by her own voice. The feeling of embarrassment surged up again. It'll get better the more you speak. Or, the man took her hand. How about you learn by imitating me? Eric placed her hand on his neck. A person's vocal cords are right here. Can you feel them? Then he began to make different syllables, explaining as he spoke. The vocal cords move along with the pitch of the sound. The girl felt the vibrations at her fingertips. My pronunciation sounds pleasant, right? Someone taught me during my voice-changing period. Now you try. She touched her own neck, wondering what a voice-changing period was. As the syllables changed, she also felt the vibration of her own vocal cords. Eric smiled. Did you find the feeling? You can try saying something, anything. What is a voice-changing period? Eric froze again, then burst into laughter.
Sorry.
This is your first question, and it's such a strange one. When people reach a certain age, their voice changes. That's the voice-changing period. Is there anything else you want to ask, or anything you need? There was indeed one urgent question in her heart. Why dismiss everyone? What does that mean? Seeing the man suddenly stiffen, she thought. Could it be that he doesn't understand? Thinking this, Misa suddenly turned around and lifted her legs. Only then did Eric realize he had not misheard. He hurriedly stopped the girl.
No.
Don't do that. I understand. Don't ever make that gesture again. He stammered that he needed some time. How about we let our relationship become closer first? That might also reduce some of the awkwardness between us. Before Misa fully understood what he meant, he had already stood up. I'll show you around the greenhouse. The king had once used their failure to consummate the marriage as an excuse to accuse the Cladner family of deceiving the royal family and treason. So she did not understand why Eric always looked so calm and unhurried. Moreover, the king had specifically instructed the maids to watch them. Eric said in surprise, "So you're not actually having trouble with your legs? Like a cat?" The girl revealed a sly smile. Thinking about it carefully, I was completely fooled by you from beginning to end. Of course, that was something she had trained hard to achieve. How on earth did you do it? Misa was still not good at expressing herself. After thinking for a moment, she decided not to explain for now. Seeing her spread her arms, Eric stopped walking as well. Do you need me to carry you? You've indeed walked much more than usual today. She casually played with her hair. This person would not force her to do anything, nor would he interrogate her endlessly. What a relief. He was even better than she had imagined. It felt like this gentleness might last a long time. One day before the wedding, the high priestess had once told her what to do on the first night. Since it was merely a formality, the priestess had recited the entire procedure in the same tone. But it had felt somewhat strange to her, and the priestess had said that the body would feel immense pain during the process. So she had always regarded it as a very troublesome matter. But to her now, it was one of the important means of consolidating this marriage. However, ever since she finished that conversation with this man a few days ago, he had been finding various excuses to delay. His life was clearly also in the king's hands, so why was she the only one feeling anxious? Eric noticed her gaze. Do you have something to say to me? There was a trace of irritation in the girl's voice. When will we become close? What if the gentleness he had shown so far was all an act? Was he delaying only so that it would be more convenient to annul the marriage later and drive her away? If not because of such a plan, then could it be her own fault? She recalled Marika's words that even when she had taken everything off, he had shown no reaction at all. Whenever people here treated her a little kindly, countless uneasy thoughts would arise in her mind. That was why she was so eager to consolidate this marriage as soon as possible, because she truly liked life here. Here, sometimes, it made her feel as if she had returned to that brief period of happiness. Having received no response from the girl since earlier, Eric looked nervous. Misa, are you feeling unwell somewhere? I've called you several times. She did not know how to express her unease, so she simply repeated the maid's words. Who would let someone like this carry his child? Eric looked shocked. What are you talking about? Who dared to say such a thing to you? With that sharp tone, it must have been Madame Marika. So that's what you meant just now. Eric's face flushed again. I said before, we know nothing about each other. That again. She tossed aside the pillow and repeated what he had said. Eric suddenly understood. No wonder you obediently listened to me that day. Don't tell me you thought that as long as you listened to me, we could immediately do that? You're too cunning. But I also need time to prepare myself mentally. After all, it's not something to be done casually. As for how to do it, let's discuss it properly tonight. But she had clearly heard that it could be done even upon first meeting. At night, Eric placed the candlestick by the bed. Mainly, the situation in all aspects is rather complicated right now. And there are also the maids who came with you. In short, you want to do what should be done on the first night. And I want to understand you better. So let's do this starting tonight. You tell me something about yourself every evening. Anything at all. In that case, I'll also cooperate with you. Let's start with something simple. Madam, what food do you like? The girl answered meat. Eric was somewhat surprised. I thought you would like cake or cookies. I like fruit and vegetables, because on the battlefield we could only eat dry rations. At the mention of the battlefield, Misa's eyes lit up, looking as if she expected him to continue. Seeing her expression, Eric laughed. You're always staying at home. Don't you ever feel bored? She did not understand what bored meant, because she had always lived like this. But she had to find some way to give him an answer. Eric, stop talking. The man froze. Are you imitating my mother this time? He burst into laughter again. But being able to hear you call my name really makes me happy. Say it again. That request was not difficult. So Misa called his name alone. Eric's expression softened at once, as if something had gently touched him. Very good. Madam's voice is really pleasant. He cupped Misa's face. No matter what, you obediently listened this time as well. So I'll show a little sincerity too. He gently kissed the girl's forehead. Misa froze as if immobilized, staring blankly at him. This was the first time Eric had felt such intense curiosity toward someone. Not only had she perfectly deceived everyone since childhood, even he, who had treated countless wounded, had not noticed that her leg problem was an act. In that devouring royal palace, the fact that she could maintain her disguise until now was truly astonishing. Eric began to grow curious about her past, curious about what was going on in her little head every day. He wanted to understand everything about her. His desire to step into her inner world grew stronger and stronger. But early the next morning, he heard the news that his mother was in a furious rage. And when he rushed over, he only saw the girl lying pale on the bed. The moment he saw Misa's pale face, Eric's mind went completely blank. Just that morning, as usual, the maids followed their routine to examine Misa's body. After confirming that the two still had not consummated their marriage, Marika suddenly froze. She stared fixedly at Misa's face. Recently, the princess's behavior has been a bit strange, but I can't quite put my finger on what's wrong. The plump maid beside her asked, by the way, are you going to see them today?
No, tomorrow.
I wonder if we'll be able to bring back something worthwhile this time. Although Misa couldn't understand what they were talking about, the instincts she had developed over more than 10 years in the royal palace were already frantically sending her warning signals. Why are the kingdom's 3 pillars all in such poor shape?
Exactly.
How much longer are we supposed to stay here? She was certain that if she didn't stir something up today, they would definitely grow suspicious. Misa began to cause a scene. She sprinted a full circle along the second-floor corridor, under the witness of countless maids, and suddenly leapt down from the balcony. The flower bushes in full bloom served perfectly as a cushion. Madame sat by the bedside, her voice unusually cold. Since you're here to monitor her, then do it properly. Aren't you too idle all day? Is it really so hard to keep an eye on her and prevent her from getting hurt? When she saw it was her son who had arrived, the mother's fierce expression softened slightly. Eric's gaze remained fixed on Misa, completely ignoring the sobbing plump maid nearby. His expression was grave as he reached out to touch the girl's forehead, testing her temperature. But in truth, Misa was pretending to sleep. After sensing the heavy atmosphere in the room, she didn't dare open her eyes. So naturally, she did not see the mixture of anger and heartache on Eric's face. Examine her. The girl was named Yahello, a doctor from the Cladnir Knights. From now on, I will assign a maid from the estate to serve Madam. You two return to the palace and report everything that happened here. He briskly dismissed Marika and Adel. After the others left, Madam finally began to seem truly unstable. I didn't expect cooperating with those incompetents to be this difficult. I should have torn them all to pieces from the start. Eric, don't you think so? Perhaps the mother had once again seen the shadow of her younger daughter in Misa. In a certain spring, just before Rogel's birthday, she had entered the forest alone without servants and was knocked down by a drunken knight, dying on the spot. That day, Mother completely lost her sanity. Not only the knight, but even the stable hand who had handed over the horse to him, and even their families were executed. At the time, Father condemned Mother's actions as too extreme. From that day on, their relationship completely fell apart. And today, Mother's condition was very similar to that day, so it was best not to let her interfere, because no one knew what kind of madness she might commit. Mother, this is my wife's matter. I will handle it myself. At that moment, GLA had just finished the examination. The young madam only sprained her right hand. I've treated it. It shouldn't be a problem as long as she doesn't strain it. Only then did madam's taut nerves relax slightly. What a relief. You're right. I should go back and calm down. Before leaving, she gently kissed Misa on the forehead. I believe you'll handle this well. GLA keenly sensed that the commander looked terrifying at the moment and quietly edged aside. Then I'll take my leave as well. Wait. You said she has no other major wounds. Are you certain? GLA immediately caved. I'm very sorry. Actually, the young madam has many areas of repeated injury, and the wounds are quite deep. But most of them are old injuries from long ago and can no longer be treated, so that's why I said no. I see. I absolutely won't speak of this to anyone. You know I've never disclosed any patient's privacy without permission. Eric cut her off. You're not busy lately, are you? The girl suddenly had a bad premonition. Actually, many people misunderstand me as being very idle. Starting tomorrow morning, you'll work here. GLA froze in shock. Eric gave her no chance to refuse. If you understand, then leave. He shut the door with a bang. Only he and Misa remained in the room. His voice was still frighteningly cold. I know you're not asleep. Why exactly did you do that? You must have a reason. Misa was determined to keep pretending. She didn't want to face Eric, but her trembling body betrayed her. The man sighed helplessly and softened his tone to coax her patiently. It's all right, Misa. Tell me, what was the reason for causing this commotion today? Only then did the girl slowly open her eyes. There was a reason. Then let's hear it. It's a bit hard to explain. Eric was completely at a loss with her. You absolutely must not hurt yourself again. You'd be better off smashing things or doing something else. Seeing that the girl still looked like she wanted to avoid the topic, he simply leaned closer. You can do anything you want, just don't hurt yourself, understand? Promise me right now that you won't hurt yourself again. The girl nodded hurriedly. I promise you. Only then did Eric breathe a sigh of relief. Then get some proper rest now. If you're hungry, call me. Seeing that the girl still looked bright and alert, he asked, do you still have something you want to say? Was that person just now my maid? He almost laughed out of anger. You're injured like this, and you're still curious about that? For now, that's the arrangement. Don't you like her? The girl shook her head. That's good. I heard she's a student of a famous doctor, so she's very skilled at treating external injuries. Don't be fooled by her gentle appearance. She can easily take down 2 wolves, and she's very tight-lipped. How tight-lipped? In any case, she can't be bribed by anyone. However, she's a doctor, so she's never been taken for interrogation. Just in case, it's better for you to keep acting for now. Do you remember Carlin, who was standing guard at the gate when we went to the palace? From now on, I'll have him guard the 2nd floor at all times. Carlin lost 2 fingers to torture, so he's a knight who wields his sword with his left hand. He's one of the most trustworthy people I know, but I haven't told him about you yet, so you don't need to worry too much. In short, since you're injured, I'll put aside the affairs of the knights for now and spend more time with you. With each sentence he spoke, Misa's expression changed. When he mentioned he would take a break, the undisguised joy on the girl's face made Eric's heart tremble slightly as well. He knew that aside from him, no one had ever seen these expressions of hers. Unable to resist, he gently stroked the girl's head. I need to handle something urgent. I'll be back soon. Misa's expression grew even more excited, and that emotion seemed to quietly infect him as well. Yet in the very next second, the girl suddenly sat up and threw herself straight at him. This was the first time Eric had ever reprimanded Misa head-on. What nonsense are you talking about? You're injured. What are you trying to do? However, what frustrated him even more was that although he was truly angry, he couldn't take his eyes off the girl. Until you've recovered, don't even think about it. Even after saying that, he couldn't help turning back to look at her again. Misa's eyes were slightly red at the corners, and her lips were pouted. But the problem had to be solved. Why are you in such a hurry to do that? After a moment of silence, the girl finally spoke. I heard you've never touched the princess? Are you planning to annul the engagement at the temple? Logically, you should deal with her immediately. Weren't you originally preparing to marry Rakane? As each familiar sentence came from her mouth, Eric finally realized that she knew everything and had always cared about what Iberic had said. Misa, I will absolutely not annul our engagement. We will spend our lives together, so we have plenty of time. There's no need to rush into that before we fully understand each other." The girl's lips were still curled downward. Clearly, she didn't believe him. "What strange thoughts are you having now? If you have anything you're curious or worried about, just ask directly. I'll answer truthfully. Or do you think I've been hiding something from you? You used to sit on my lap and read all kinds of documents with me. You've seen every secret. At this point, what could I possibly hide from you?" Eric knew he couldn't be too impatient with her. "Get some proper rest today. If you can't sleep, should I have the maids come keep you company?" Misa didn't understand why he suddenly mentioned the maids. "Don't you always go to the maids' workroom to play? You seem quite happy when you're with them." "Not happy? Then for what? The workroom is quiet, and the maids are always talking. I heard everything." "So, you went there to gather information?" He suddenly had a guess. "Did you do the same in the palace?" The girl nodded happily. "That's right. Do you know why the court count's head is still on his shoulders? Do you know how much Madame Marika gave head maid Namaria? I know all of it. And Adel already said she hates that white-haired steward. She likes big, burly men, the rough and sturdy kind. Gossip about acquaintances is very interesting." What shocked Eric was that every single thing Misa had done so far had meaning. Perhaps, with that thought, he moved closer to Misa, and even his voice unconsciously softened. "I want to speak closer to you." The girl immediately revealed an expectant expression. Were they finally going to? But in the next instant, cold water was poured over her. Why did Madame Marika give money to head maid Namaria? Did she cause trouble? Or was it because she wanted to secure the position of being your caretaker? Her expectations shattered. Misa turned her face away in a sulk. But simple-hearted as she was no match for the man. "You have to tell me these things first. Only then can we grow closer more quickly." The girl reluctantly spat out a few words. "Meeting sharp-faced Marika tomorrow." The 3 pillars of the royal palace. Eric began to piece the information together in his mind. The 3 pillars referred to the kingdom's 3 great families. The king's maternal family, after being purged a few years ago, now existed only in name. Rakane had once inexplicably said something to him, and the one eavesdropping at the time had been Marika. It seems the pillar she wants to prop up is the Crispin family. I need to send people to investigate both sides. Misa hadn't expected him to grasp the key points so quickly. A ridiculous thought surfaced in her mind. If it were this man, suddenly, a light kiss landed on her cheek. She covered her face and looked up at Eric. His face was even redder than hers. "That's your reward for answering my questions." She stared blankly at the man before her. If this always reckless fellow was truly what she thought he was, then what should she do? The newly appointed maid soon faced questioning from Marika. "What do you mean? Are you saying the ointment I brought is harmful to the young madam? Who knows whether this ointment is poisoned? How can it be used on her highness so casually?" GLA was furious. She was not someone to be trifled with. How dare they bully her? Without hesitation, she scooped up a lump of ointment and stuffed it straight into her mouth, swallowing it in one gulp. "See, I'm perfectly fine. If you're so worried, you try a mouthful too." Choosing her had indeed been the right decision. He walked to Misa's side and gently instructed her. "My lady, I'll be back before noon. It won't be long, so rest well for a while." After saying this, he turned and left amid everyone's astonished gazes. "My lady is in your care." In truth, he still didn't fully understand Misa's actions yesterday. He didn't understand why she would rather hurt herself than carry the act through to the end. Although it was indeed an opportunity to suppress the palace maids, could it be that this, too, was part of her plan? In order to find out Misa's true intentions, he had to remove all those informants first. And then, slowly, everything the girl had endured in the royal palace flashed through Eric's mind scene by scene. At this moment, he seemed like a different person. Very quickly, he threw all the work of training the knights over to Iberic. "Do you know how busy I am? Other than going to see women, what could you possibly be busy with?" Iberic had been hit where it hurt and even began to stammer in his defense. "That's enough. Starting tomorrow, you'll be in charge." He decided that until Misa fully recovered, he would temporarily hand over the knight training to someone else. He selected several knights skilled in stealth to track the people from Marika's and Crispin's families. "Go and call Adel here. And don't let Mother know." Adel was exceptionally capable. Since her youth, she had been appointed by the lady of the house as the head maid. "You were looking for me?" Because of what had happened yesterday, she had entered the palace with Marika to report, and cleverly obtained a handwritten copy of the relevant report from the court count. However, if the maid who replaced Marika turned out to be the same type of person as them, then all their efforts would be meaningless. If they wanted to intervene in the selection of palace maids, compared to him, who had spent 12 years on the battlefield, Adel was the more suitable choice. After all, she had always stayed in the capital, responsible for interacting with other families and gathering intelligence. There was no one more suitable than her to investigate Marika's bribery of Namaria, and Adel quickly found a breakthrough. "I've heard that Namaria's right-hand woman, Viscountess Manhwa, has recently been distressed over her brother-in-law's affairs. Presumably, if we help her resolve this issue, she will do everything in her power to cooperate with us. Eric returned to the residence before noon. As soon as he pushed the door open, he saw GLA painting with Misa. GLA enthusiastically reported everything the lady had done that day. But in the man's eyes, there was only his wife's adorable face stained with colorful watercolor marks. Eric unconsciously curved his lips into a smile and bent down to wipe the paint from Misa's face. That's enough for today. You can head back. Seeing GLA still standing there in a daze, Eric urged her again. Didn't you say you were busy? Come again tomorrow morning. So I have to do a doctor's job too? Is there anything else you want to say? That's all. I'll see you two tomorrow. When GLA finally came back to her senses outside the door with a confused look, she was instantly furious. How could he order people around like that? With one salary, you expect me to do 2 jobs? If I'd known, I might as well have gone back to the village to see patients. Carlin remained calm. You'll receive 2 salaries. Really? Then I have nothing to complain about. Unexpectedly, Eric suddenly pushed the door open, startling her. Where are the clothes to be changed for the lady? Oh, right, I still have to bathe her. No need. Just tell me where the clothes are. On the bottom shelf of the rack. Before she could finish, the door slammed shut, leaving only a faint thank you drifting out, making her wonder if she had imagined it. No, I'm already used to the commander's way of only saying what's necessary. But this, Carlin felt she was making a fuss. Those who've served as commanders all speak like that. That's not what I mean. One second he had a stern face, and the next he was speaking to the young madam in an especially gentle tone. Is there anything wrong with being respectful to one's own wife? That's not it. The commander clearly can't even converse much with the young madam, but the way he looks at her, forget it, it's nothing. Maybe they just have a good relationship. Carlin glanced at her. Since I've never seen how the commander treated the young madam before, I'm not too sure. But he has always been someone who values etiquette. Though he seems cold, he's never treated us unfairly. Has he? That's true. As long as you don't hide anything from him, there won't be any trouble. Exactly. After all, what the commander values most is honesty. And at this moment, this man who valued etiquette and honesty was preparing to bathe his wife. Was painting fun? The girl did not answer, but made a dry request instead. No fairy tale books. Eric turned to look at her. What? Not that. I want to read books adults read. Reading books that help you practice speaking would be better. Next time I'll have her bring a novel, since there's a lot of dialogue in those. Misa shyly averted her gaze. And also, that person lacks basic cultivation, so she can't converse. I'll have her bring some books that can improve cultivation. Eric opened his arms. All right, let's go over there. The bathwater is ready. Unexpectedly, the girl suddenly dodged away from him. He looked puzzled. Her voice was very low, embarrassed. Eric's face, very embarrassing. I'll feel uncomfortable. My face is embarrassing? What does that mean? Every time you bathe, your face turns red. Why? Be embarrassed. After saying that, she pointed at the door. I'll wash myself. Eric, go out. The man froze. But isn't your arm injured? If you wash yourself. Angry. This time Misa did not answer him directly. The expression on her face clearly turned unhappy. She was upset again. Eric switched to a negotiating tone. Then I'll help you wash off the paint. And wash your hair. Then I'll go out. That should be fine, right? Only then did Misa reluctantly nod. By the way, you don't seem to like answering questions. Eric gently washed her fingers. From now on, answer questions with simple sentences. No matter what you do, you only improve through practice. The girl blushed and pulled her hand back. Go out now. Can you manage by yourself? You want me to leave already? Seeing her stubborn expression, Eric instead smiled. If you need anything, call me anytime. But the moment he closed the door, there was a loud thud from inside. He immediately turned around nervously, ready to rush in at any time. However, soon after, there came the sound of splashing water. Misa, trying to bathe independently for the first time, felt very unhappy. This won't do. Tomorrow, I'll have GLA bathe me. Yes, starting tomorrow, she'll do it. Eric listened outside the door, unable to suppress a doting smile, thinking, she's even put her night clothes on backwards. Come here, I'll dry you properly. That night, he sat by the bed, massaging the girl's wrist, while asking how she had spent the morning. He noticed that Misa's hands were wrinkled from soaking too long in water. There's nothing inconvenient at the moment, right? No, it's fine. Didn't you say you like meat? I've already told the kitchen. But why were you so thin before? Misa thought about it, found it too troublesome to explain, and began imitating others again. Oh my, why bother preparing anything special? Anyway, more goes into her mouth than onto her body, so just give her some vegetable leaves. Were Marika and Dial your maids from the very beginning? Yes, there were 5 originally. Now only 2 are left. Eric's aura subtly changed. I see. Their attitude toward you seemed rather impolite. Misa keenly sensed the change in his mood. No. If they get hurt, Bellamur will know. Bellamur. Bellamur was the name the king used before his accession. The girl's body trembled slightly. Sensing her fear, Eric immediately changed the subject. By the way, it's only been a few days, and you've already become much more fluent. I could have been better. I just couldn't keep practicing. Why couldn't you practice? That's because I originally wanted to practice at night, but every time I got up, you would do this. She didn't know how many times she had tried to slip away quietly, only to be unconsciously pulled back into Eric's embrace each time. Blushing, he solemnly apologized and told her she could practice anytime without worry. Misa pointed at her forehead. I spoke. So now, here, Eric looked surprised, but quickly realized what the girl was asking for. Are you an intelligence broker? One sentence for one reward. The girl did not understand what an intelligence broker was, but from that day on, her speech became more and more fluent, and her questions increased as well. Unexpectedly, she often asked the most basic and simple questions. What is a liar? And what does damn it mean? How do girls about my age usually live? How do others view the king? As their conversations became more frequent, Misa's speech grew very smooth. She lifted her little face proudly, because these were things I could already say. I've thought them through countless times in my head. I answered you. Hurry and kiss me. From now on, how about speaking more politely? After all, we're husband and wife. Wouldn't it be better to speak more politely? But I'm royalty, and the son of the Cladnir family is at most a count. Why should I show you respect? Eric burst into laughter. What should we do then? Since you married me, you're now just a noble as well. Why is that? He briefly explained the kingdom's laws to the girl. Except for the king, if one marries someone of a different rank, after marriage, the status remains at the lower-ranked party's level. Eric lowered his head and kissed the back of her hand. Have I disappointed you? No. I like the life here, so even becoming just a noble doesn't matter. When Misa listened to him intently, her eyes were extremely adorable, and that little mouth that only spoke after careful consideration as well. Why hadn't he noticed it at first? His wife was so adorable and beautiful. The girl played with his hair. You're very kind. I'm glad I saved you back then. What do you mean? When the king almost treated you as a traitor, wasn't it I who saved your life? Eric lowered his eyes. If he hadn't married back then, he wouldn't have faced those dangers. The girl's proud expression, her flushed cheeks, and her chattering mouth made him feel that even so what? Yes, I will remember it well. More than these things, what moved him most was her ever-changing expressions. After marrying you, I'm very happy. Really? Because everything about her was so lovable that he simply could not look away. At times like this, you should close your eyes. He urged softly, close them. The girl obediently closed her eyes. Eric gazed at her tenderly. The corners of your mouth are stiff. Relax a little. Different from what Misa had heard from the priest. Eric's actions felt very strange to her. There was nothing in her mouth to eat. So, why was this man holding on so persistently? When Eric pulled back, he saw Misa's expression, both shy and shocked. He couldn't help but chuckle softly, and kissed her forehead again and again. Her cheeks. Misa, does it feel strange? Yes, very strange. She pushed the man away forcefully. It's not like this. Do you really understand? Before you didn't, right? It's not done like this. That has nothing to do with the upper body at all. I learned from the priest, so I'm very clear about it. Eric caught her flailing hands. The reason I'm doing this is to ease that very painful feeling you mentioned. But Misa firmly believed she was right. No, you must be mistaken. Eric pressed her hands back down. You're always like this. We can't get anywhere. She turned her face away and continued protesting. Don't be so stubborn. I'm doing this all to save you. Hearing that it was for him, Eric's joy nearly overflowed. For me, that really moves me. It seems I'll have to spend even more time, because I don't want my dear wife to feel pain. Humph. Why can't you understand? In that regard, I feel the same way about my wife. I never expected we would understand each other like this. I'm truly happy. The plump maid and Marika fell into confusion together. What's going on? Did they succeed or not? Misa indeed had not rested well. Eric had spent the entire night she had never imagined that this man would be completely clueless in that regard. At that moment, GLA walked in, and Marika curled her lips. Oh my, the lover has arrived. They actually took GLA to be Eric's. The girl picked up the clothes, preparing to help Misa change. But the sight before her made her freeze on the spot. What's going on? Is this some kind of eczema? When she realized what it actually was, a scream nearly lifted the roof off the house. Meanwhile, the culprit was listening to Adel's report with a completely indifferent expression. The palace has no intention of replacing Marika. If she continues investigating, it may arouse suspicion. So she can only stop for now. Strange. Marika doesn't seem like a capable person. According to the investigation, her hands are not clean. Once, she was even caught stealing valuables from the palace, and in the end, she only kept her position by bribing the head maid. Even so, the king still insists on refusing to replace her. In any case, because of Marika, Viscountess Manhwa has also begun sending gifts to the head maid. Since the head maid is quite extravagant, the progress has been unusually smooth. This is the list of gifts. Thank you for your hard work. Eric had just taken it. When he heard Adel continue, young master, Why not simply take a concubine and withdraw your concern for the young madam? The girl felt that her master was simply because the innocent young madam, whose mind was like that of a child, was already covered in his marks. In contrast, GLA was on the verge of losing her mind, while Misa was seriously digging a hole at the side. What is this supposed to be? Has the captain gone mad? She waved her fists. If you don't like the master, you can scratch him or bite him. Hitting him would be fine too, but something like this, who could she even tell about it? Misa felt a little uncomfortable, but in order to continue pretending to be mad, she could not tell GLA that she had grown close to Eric of her own free will. GLA was about to break down. Their husband and wife. No, who could possibly stop this? Looking at the innocent young madam, GLA felt terribly distressed. Until now, I always thought my sister was the most pitiful person in the world, but now I'm not so sure. I have a sister like you, young madam. Her name is Tally. I have 8 siblings. Families like ours tend to have many children, but once an epidemic broke out in the village. After a high fever, Tally became just like you, young madam. My father was working as an assistant in a blacksmith shop at the time. Honestly, with that kind of income, he simply couldn't afford to raise a gravely ill child. So one day, father took Tally out, but when he returned, he was alone. It was only much later that I learned Tally had gone to a place from which she would never come back. No matter how heartbroken I was, I had nowhere to speak of it, because people would only say, who hasn't experienced something like this? Misa listened carefully to GLA's words. So, harming one's family was such a common thing? She had learned something new again today. After venting, GLA turned her face away in slight embarrassment. In the past, I could only say these things to the horses in the stable or to stray dogs passing by. Thank you for being willing to listen to my story. She used to be called a rat or a monkey, but this time she was compared to horses and dogs. Yet strangely, she did not feel too bad about it. GLA looked straight at her. Actually, the first time I saw you, She was waiting curiously for GLA to finish her sentence, but unexpectedly, Eric arrived. He told GLA to leave first. The girl stepped out with a face full of worry, turning back 3 times with every step. Compared to seeing him, Misa wanted more to hear GLA finish that sentence. So when the man brushed aside his wind-tousled hair and leaned in to kiss his wife, she blurted out, "You don't have to come pick me up anymore," which made him freeze on the spot. "You don't like me coming to pick you up?" "It's not that." Using something she had learned today, Misa answered seriously, "You're so busy. How could I take up your time? Besides, whenever I'm with you, no one says anything anymore. That's fine. But when I'm with GLA, as soon as she says something, lots of people talk to her. I think that's fun." Eric fell silent. After a while, he spoke again. Misa stared at him, feeling that he didn't seem to be in a very good mood. Then she heard Eric continue, "If you just want to be alone with GLA, then how about dressing more formally? Even if it means changing clothes often, that's fine. I already thought it was too much before. Why are they making you wear such inferior clothes? Is there some special reason? I hope you can wear clothes made of better material." Of course there was a reason. If the Cladner family knew that she herself was unwelcome, they would never respect her. Then sooner or later, the moment when they revealed their true faces to her would surely come. Whether it was mistreating her, or making her simply disappear. For the king and the others, it would be a welcome outcome. After all, that would become the best excuse for them to make trouble for the Cladner family. And the reason she kept addressing herself as princess was merely to provoke their disgust toward her more quickly. But she did not want to tell this man any of that. "I'm going to dig under the maju tree tomorrow, so I don't want to wear new clothes." Recently, this man seemed especially wary of words like sharp-faced and big and burly, so she tried hard to avoid mentioning terms that might irritate him. Then change into something softer. "And in the future, remember to bring tools. Don't dig with your hands anymore." This man never easily stopped her. He always respected everything she did. "You've gotten a little tan playing in the sun, but you look healthy. When I first met you, you were pale and frail. I worried for a long time. Now you're starting to look more and more like a tomboy." This was the first time someone had noticed the changes happening to her. It was also the first time she had gone out during the day and truly smelled the scent of grass. So she only hoped that no one would take this peaceful daily life away from her again. At that moment, footsteps sounded behind them. It was the gardener. Misa hurriedly resumed digging in a fluster. Eric confirmed with him whether the bird nests had all been cleared away. Perhaps because he was the one who had brought her a new life. Sometimes Eric's words sounded almost magical to her. The gardener looked as though he wanted to say something but hesitated. Yet in the end, he left without saying anything. Misa asked softly, "That person, every time I dig, he frowns. Does he dislike me doing this very much? You're digging so deep under the trees. No gardener would like that. But if he speaks rudely to you, that's another matter." On such matters, this man always answered decisively, "When the time comes, I will punish him." At that moment, she even felt as though he were a character from a fairy tale, a king who embodied compassion, justice, and wisdom. That night, Eric again began doing those strange things to her that she considered unnecessary. And whenever she failed to answer seriously, the man would stop and only continue after she finished answering. Misa was extremely angry. She wanted to take back the good opinion she had formed of him during the day. She liked being carried around by her husband, yet stubbornly refused to say why. So the man simply pushed her away. "You can take your time. I have plenty of time." Misa was unhappy. He was the one who had asked first. "Among the things I do to you, which ones do you like?" She had answered obediently, and she had only grown close to him to save both their lives. Why did he have to keep tormenting her? "Because if I walk too long, my legs cramp, so I like it when you carry me." Can't they just get started? Our lives are almost at stake. What's so important about those questions? She recalled something Marika had said after examining her body a few days ago. Has the young count taken another lover, which is why his attitude is changed? Misa suddenly pounced on the man. "We're lovers, right?" Eric was stunned. "What? Lovers? That's a special relationship between a man and a woman, isn't it? Are we like that?" "No, we are not lovers. We are husband and wife." "Then if we're husband and wife, can you still have a lover?" Eric suddenly understood. "So, the maids have been telling you strange things again?" "Indeed, some married people form so-called lover relationships with others, but I would never do that. Other than you, there will be no other special woman by my side. And I also hope that, other than me, you will not have any other lover." He frowned. "I truly cannot understand it. Failing to keep one's chastity is one thing, but more importantly, that is outright betrayal." Eric's grip around her arms tightened more and more until Misa called his name. And only then did the man suddenly come back to his senses. "Putting that aside, have you been copying GLA's way of speaking lately? You seem to be influenced by her." "Probably. Is it strange?" The corners of Eric's lips lifted slightly. "No. It's very cute." Misa felt that as long as they quickly completed what should have been done on the first night, that would be enough. And the priest had never talked about these strange processes either. But why was she always led along by these seemingly unnecessary things? Her mind disturbed again and again by strands of emotion, the girl received a gift, a bib embroidered jointly by the maids for her. GLA smiled, even more happily than she did. "Young madam, you're so cute, just like a little elf." But in the distance, the head maid stared at them with a dark expression. Not long ago, she had made a suggestion to Eric. "I do not believe that bowing unconditionally to the master's family is what loyalty means. I think that when the young master is heading down the wrong path, it is appropriate to..." Before she could finish, she was interrupted. "Speak plainly. Don't beat around the bush. How about taking a concubine at random and withdrawing your concern for the young madam?" Eric was stunned for a moment. Then his tone turned cold. "A lover? Sharing a bed with someone I don't like. Can that also be called loyalty? But young master, I truly cannot understand. After handing the night order to Iberic, you spend every day by the young madam's side. What kind of feelings are you trying to cultivate with someone who cannot even speak clearly? Why give opportunities to collateral branches coveting the inheritance? And recently, you have only been focused on replacing the maid sent by the palace. Are those two women really that important? Could it be that because of your neglect in managing the young madam, she ran to the courtyard to dig up saplings to vent her anger? The master of the house devotes all his energy to doting on the youngest daughter, while you, young master, pour your attention into replacing maids, which brings no benefit at all. The current situation makes me very uneasy." Eric had not expected that Adel had thought this far ahead. "Didn't you also say that there is still something about the maid Marika that we do not understand?" He looked at Carlin. "I accompany my own wife every day. How much has that delayed? Aside from night training, is there anything else?" "No. On the contrary, you resolved the recent grain shortage. We sent all the scrap iron spoils stockpiled there to Marquis Watabo, and he happily returned several years' worth of grain. In the Marquis of Watabo's territory, known for its vast plains and developed agriculture, iron is scarce. Besides the Harlake mine, we still have 2 other iron mines. Our own weapon forges can hardly keep up with the workload. And ever since Lord Iberic took charge of night training, the trust in the Night Order has actually declined. After training, they subconsciously compare him to you, Captain. Almost all the knights have reported that he is not as good as you." Eric turned to Adel. "If you have any other concerns, you can say them directly. What you are responsible for now is important matters and should not be easily shaken." Adel looked struck. "So, young master, you had already taken everything into account." I spoke out of turn. A man known for his rationality and calm judgment would, at this crucial period before inheriting the family, rather miss training to stay by this woman's side. The one disrupting the young master's judgment was actually a mentally unstable woman. And not only the young master. She had once thought that the madam's attitude toward her was mere sympathy. But she did not know when it began. Whenever this woman was mentioned, the madam would lose her composure, just as she had when dealing with Miss Rogel. What should she do? Eric casually poured water onto the ground. He had already become skilled at helping Misa destroy the scene. And suddenly, the girl came up with a new idea. "I want to go outside. and have a look. In the book's GLA reads, it says there are many people on the streets. You want to go to the commoner's district? Hearing the hesitation in his tone, Misa immediately tried to persuade him in her own way. The books also say that in front of the shops, there are no courtyards, only buildings connected one after another. That's the commercial street. Just as the man hesitated, the girl looked up at him pitifully, her eyes filled with anticipation. Can't we? I want to see it. Eric was struck right at his weak point. Under his mother's repeated instructions, the young master took his little wife and finally welcomed the two of them's first outing together.